we know what they're doing. They're rebuilding, and here is their biggest piece, their most expensive player, Sandy Alcantara, who looked great in spring training.
We've got the Homage Inside Scoop with FT Senior Insider Ken Rosenthal. Happy opening day to you, Ken. Great to see you, and your storylines were put out for the year. Do you want to give us a little taste of one or two that stood out?
Well, I had the A's and the Rays playing in minor league ballparks. That was one. I had the aging aces, Verlander, Scherzer, Kershaw. That was another. Talked a lot about the divisions. Talked a lot about how the National League is clearly superior right now to the American League and how that might play out. So that was some of it. There were 12 storylines in all. The story was like 3,500 words long, so there's plenty to get through there.
So I want to double down on what you said with the ballparks. We talked about it a lot over the offseason. It's actually here. It's still hard for me to fathom that not one but two teams are going to play in minor league facilities for the entire year. How weird will it be for you to get to one of those games? I'm sure you'll get to at least one, if not both, over the course of the year. And I know we're looking at the A's situation as, hey, they totally deserve this. They set this up. You could make the same case for the Rays because I know that there was a disaster down there with the hurricane, but they had 20 years to get a new ballpark together that could have withstood that.
Well, you can make that case, but as I wrote, the A's situation is self-inflicted. The Rays one, when you can argue, yes, that it's self-inflicted because they didn't get a new ballpark done sooner, it really is the result of the roof blowing off Tropicana Field. So they're distinct situations, at least in my view. It will be interesting to see how this plays out. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the photos of how Steinbrenner Field has been transformed into a Rays stadium, which is cool. But playing outdoors for the Rays, that's going to be interesting because of the weather in Florida in the summer. And I know that there's been a lot of talk also about the heat in Sacramento in the summer. People have told me that's not as big a deal. It gets hot. Yes, it gets hot everywhere, but nothing oppressive. But just the idea of these teams playing in those facilities. Now, it might energize them to some degree because in each case, they're selling a lot of tickets. And that's not something they necessarily did in either of their previous existences. So I'm interested to see, yes, how this plays out.
Real quick, you don't have to go in depth here, but Dodgers, dynasty or not, do you see this team going through divisions and the league simply and easily, or do you see them, coming up a little short this year?
Todd, I definitely see them making the playoffs. They've made it, 11, 12 straight years. That's not going to change. The one thing that does concern me is simply the strength of the league and the difficulty of getting through a division series and then a league championship series and World Series. We've seen them have difficulties in the DS really 3 straight years. They won it last year, but let's not forget they were down 2-1 in San Diego throwing a bullpen game. I wouldn't say it's a miracle that they won, but the odds were against them. So clearly, the regular season, they'll do what they need to do there to get to the playoffs, and that'll be fine for them. But once they get in the playoffs, if you face the Braves with a healthy Chris Sale, a healthy Spencer Strider, maybe Spencer Schwellenbach, and then you get, maybe you get the Phillies in the division series instead with Nola and Sanchez and Wheeler, or maybe it's someone else entirely and you still have a difficult time. The Diamondbacks, Gallen, Burns, Kelly. It's not that easy to win in the playoffs. We know that. The regular season, the best teams generally prevail, but we'll see how it all plays out in October.
So, Ken, I'm not going to ask any predictions. I know that we don't like those around here. But when you talk about the AL East, you say it's the AKA the Great Wide Open. I'm predicting that 3 teams could make the playoffs out of the AL East. What's your take on that?
Danny, that's certainly reasonable. And the division is that strong. I will say, though, keep in mind, last year 3 teams made it out of the Central. And those teams, each of them feel that they're improved, as do the Minnesota Twins. And in the West, we have 3 teams, the Rangers, the Astros, and the Mariners, who the projection systems from Pacoda and Fangraphs all have within 2 games of each other. You've got a better, improved Oakland team, and I believe the Angels will be better as well. So the league is really competitive. I don't know that there's a super team. That's why I called it the wide open AL East. But I expect serious competition, and I don't know that I can say for certainty that the three teams will come out of the AL East when, in fact, it could be one of the other divisions that gets three.
Ken, I will not stand for the blasphemy of Florida, by the way. The outside heat in Florida is terrible. So let's just stop the blasphemy of Florida weather, okay? The Rays are concerned about it, though. I know that, having been to camp and talking to them. They are concerned about the heat and the rainouts and all that with their pitchers. So that part I'll give you, but don't blast the Florida weather because it's much better than Baltimore or Phoenix or wherever it is you lay your head at night. Now, let's get to the question. Why is the National League so much better than the American League? We did our power rankings a couple days ago. I forgot mine. But I know I had like 5 or 6 National League teams before I got to the first American League team. Why is it such a difference in talent and teams?
Part of it is money, for certain, that the Mets, the Dodgers, the Phillies have spent big in recent years. The Braves have, I believe, a top 10 payroll as well. And the other part is, in the American League, the Yankees, if they were healthy, I think we'd be looking at this differently. We'd be looking at the Yankees as the clear favorite. They're not healthy, obviously. And the Red Sox haven't spent to the level that you would think in recent years, and that's been part of it as well. But it just seems to me, AJ, it's probably a snapshot in time. I don't know that there's any particular rhyme or reason to it. Money definitely is part of it, but it's not the whole story.
What about Sandy Alcantara? We haven't even played a game yet. Already talking Sandy Alcantara getting traded. Is it more indicative of his starts before he gets traded, or is it a deadline, like a line where it's like, okay, trade deadline's in July, we'll trade, we could move him by June, or could it be like a early of the season, May type of thing once he shows he's healthy?
They traded Arise in May last year, so it's certainly possible. Now, I want to be careful talking about the other Florida team because the head of the Florida Chamber of Commerce just warned me not to say anything untoward about anything in that great state. But the Marlins, we know where they're at, right? We know what they're doing. They're rebuilding, and here is their biggest piece, their most expensive player, Sandy Alcantara, who looked great in spring training, touched 100, looked like his old Cy Young self. So there's every reason to believe that they are going to move him. Now, the timing, Eric, is interesting because certainly, I don't know, if he shows in 5 or 6 starts that he's right where he used to be, maybe that's the time to strike and get the maximum return. Or maybe you wait and have that deadline kind of frenzy take place and get the maximum bid that way. I'm not sure how it's going to go. Let's just hope he's healthy, because if he's healthy, that'll be a fun pitcher to watch again. And yes, as I wrote, he will be a walking trade rumor.
Ken, you're in Houston this weekend with Fox, right? Mets, Houston? Well, I'm in Atlanta versus San Diego, so I won the weather battle there for sure. And we can make an argument for the matchup. But give me a preview of your game this weekend. Who you got, who's pitching, and what you're expecting to see from Juan Soto, Cam Smith, etc.
We've got the Saturday game. It's Spencer Arrighetti versus Griffin Canning. And the interesting thing for me, or a couple of them, one obviously is Soto, 2, Cam Smith. And the Cam Smith story is one we're all going to be paying close attention to in the early stages of the season. Then we've got Altuve in left field. There are all kinds of things going on in this series, all kinds of things going on with these teams. And with the Mets, it's can they sustain themselves through their starting pitching injuries early in the season? And how will it all play out offensively with Soto? I think pretty good. And with the Astros, it's a new team. It's a much different Astros team than we've seen in the past. No Tucker, no Bregman, no Presley. In comes Christian Walker and Paredes and Cam Smith and Zach DeCenzo. So I am really looking forward to this matchup, and yours is a good matchup too. Braves, Padres, nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot of intrigue with both these clubs.
Let's talk about pressure. Who has the most pressure this first month of the season to start out hot, or else they could be fired, or team could look different?
I don't know that anyone is in danger of getting fired in the first month, simply because teams don't do that the way they used to. I covered a team that fired its manager after 6 games in 1988, the Orioles, and then lost 15 more. But those days are essentially gone. Teams are much more patient with their managers, at least in season. But when you ask which teams are under pressure, I would say the Blue Jays certainly. The Blue Jays for a couple of reasons. Their front office, Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins, has been under fire for quite some time now, at least from the fan base, if not ownership. Shapiro's in the last year of his contract. Atkins has 2 years left. They're tied together. Also, Vlad Jr., Bo Bichette. Unless Vlad signs in the next couple of hours, which I don't necessarily anticipate, those two guys are entering their walk years. This team has invested a lot in this season, signing Scherzer and Santander and trading for Jimenez, so they're under pressure. The Cubs have a very difficult schedule in the first month, but I don't know that it's going to lead to anyone getting fired. Their president of baseball operations, Jed Hoyer, though, is in the last year of his contract, and as the head of baseball operations, remember, he worked for Theo Epstein for many years before this, but as the head of baseball operations, they have yet to make the playoffs. So those are a couple of teams. You can point to a few more as well. The Orioles, certainly, it's not a firing situation, but their window is their window. It's going to last a couple of more years for sure. And they've got some great young, talented position players, but they're 0-5 in the playoffs the last 2 years. So we'll see how this all plays out for those clubs.
Ken, can you answer a question for me? I picked the Braves to win the World Series. So can you answer this question for me? You reported that this could be Brian Snitker's last year, and Scott yelled at me when I said that he could be retiring at the end of the year. So can you confirm that those reports are true?
It's certainly not known what Snitker is going to do at the end of the year. He is going to leave his options open, but everything I've heard from people around the Braves is he's energized, he's happy, he likes what he's doing. So we'll see how the year goes. It's a decision he'll probably make at the end of the year, but I don't know that we have any particular insight into it right now. AJ, we'll say this. We're both picking the Braves to win the World Series. How about that?
Were you surprised at certain teams not getting extensions done with players? Not that we even heard any buzz about them, but I'll bring up a couple team examples. We still don't have any of those Orioles players locked up. I know there's not a ton necessarily, but obviously Gunnar gets mentioned. Adley Rutschman gets mentioned. If they get off the hot start or have big seasons, the price goes up. The Angels are really big fans of some of their young core. Sam Blum wrote an article, I think that was released last night in The Athletic, about how they haven't locked up any of those players to extensions. So I feel like this has been going on for a long time, Ken. You know, the Braves did this long ago. John Hart, back in the day. Braves are doing this now. Other teams do this really well, and some don't. Does that confuse you?
No, I wouldn't say it confuses me because each circumstance is different. I don't know how keen Artie Moreno is on locking these players up. I don't know to what extent the Angels have tried. In the Orioles case, Rutschman is coming off a down second half. It's not the ideal time for him to sign an extension. And Gunnar Henderson is represented by Scott Boras, who, as I've said many times before, prefers his guys to hit the open market and establish their values that way. So each case is different, Scott. And you're right. I would say this season or this particular March has maybe had less extensions than in the past. It seems that way. But you saw Cal Raleigh do a big one. You saw Alejandro Kirk this week. There have been extensions in the last week or so. I just think each case is different.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.